A single car offering multiple engine options is nothing new. It's just that previously those options would most likely be a petrol or a diesel. These days, however, with car makers moving increasingly away from diesel, like Skoda for example, the options you now get are two petrols, a cheaper, less powerful one, and a more expensive, more exciting one. And there's no surprise that the more exciting ones tend to hog all the limelight. But not today. Today we have the Aam Janta underdogs of these cars' respective ranges, their base petrol engines. So come with me as we go on a journey with the Skoda Kushaq 1 litre TSI and the Hyundai Creta 1.5 petrol. But before we go on that journey, do let us know what you think and which you'd prefer, the Skoda Kushaq 1 litre TSI or the Hyundai Creta 1.5 petrol or something else altogether. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Autocar India channel and click the bell icon to stay notified. Well, let's get right into it, quite literally by showing you what these cars are like in their front seats. Oh boy, does the interior of the Kushaq make an incredible first impression. There's so many colors, textures, angles. I love this sort of carbon thing that dips in there, Skoda embossed on the dash, and even the way these AC vents look are just so cool. They've done a great job with the colors too, with dark and light grey. Yes, it isn't as bright as some other cabins, certainly not the Cretas, but the yellow stitching livens it up. The steering wheel is another highlight. Soft leather, this unique two-spoke design that's now across a bunch of Skoda models, and these knurled rotary switches, I really like them. It's after you spend a little bit more time here that you start to notice a few of the shortcomings. I really do wish they had managed to put in a digital dial set over here. The analog dials and monotone trip computer screen not only look dated, but also a bit too basic for this segment, more so when compared to the Creta's fancy screen-based cluster. And here's where that wow factor of the cabin starts to show its flaws. Yes, it looks good, but plastic quality is a far cry from the more expensive Skodas, and merely on par with the Creta. And the flimsy AC vents and undamped grab handles are some signs of where costs have been saved. The seats, I like them quite a lot because they fit me nice and snug, but I imagine that those with larger frames might find them a little bit too snug. But the contours are nice and they hold you in place well. They also feel quite sporty, and it adds to that driver-focused appeal of the Kushaq. So how does the Creta's cabin compare? So much like the Kushaq, step into the Creta for the first time and it will wow you, but look a little bit further and you will start to notice the cracks. Actually, it's a bit easier to spot them here in the Creta, especially one that's staring right at you, which is the dashboard. It's made of a particularly hard plastic, but it's been designed to look like leather, and that's not very convincing. Other than that though, it is a very uniquely designed cabin and I really like that. It's got a good mix of colors and textures, and there's loads of brushed aluminium trim all over the place that really helps uplift the cabin. Also uplifting the cabin are the seats, which also look very nice with their quilted perforated design, and even the leather effect on the steering wheel feels very premium when you touch it. It's also a very practically designed cabin with lots of storage spaces and controls exactly where you want them to be. And coming back to the seats, they do feel like the comfier set of the two cars, and that's because they are just a little bit larger and softer and therefore better suited to a wider variety of frames. Now of course we have to talk equipment because that's something Hyundai has always led with. So how does the Skoda compare? Pretty well actually. Skoda has learned that it can't skimp on features in this crucial mass market segment and has made sure to load up the Kushaq. There's wireless phone charging, a big touchscreen with connected car tech, auto LED headlamps, a sunroof, and a big one, cooled front seats. However, these are all things the Creta has too, and the Hyundai, as always, goes a bit further with a large panoramic sunroof, part digital instrument cluster, powered driver's seat, and electronic parking brake and drive modes. When we shot this test, a tire pressure monitor and side and curtain airbags weren't on offer on the top-end automatic Kushaq, but they've since been introduced at a price premium. You do of course get them in this top-end Creta too. While both cars meet the latest Indian safety norms, neither has been tested by global NCAP at the time of this video, so we can't give you that star rating just yet. Both cars offer a touchscreen of course, and they stretch the screen real estate up to 10 inches plus. Skoda's new infotainment system is high resolution, slick to use and full of large, easy to spot icons to help navigate. A few physical shortcut buttons, as you get in the Creta, would have helped though. The Kushaq offers wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and while it does offer some connected car features, it relies on an external internet source to do this. The Creta's connected car tech uses an onboard eSIM, which opens up more possibilities to interact with the car. Its touchscreen isn't quite as slick as the Skoda's, but it's still very good and makes better use of its widescreen shape. And now, let's go see what they're like in the backseat. As you might guess by looking at the car from the outside, step into the backseat of the Kushaq and it doesn't feel like the most spacious. And that is kind of true until you actually get in and sit down and realize that there is actually plenty of space. Headroom might just be a little bit better than what you get in the Creta, and knee room certainly does seem to be on par, if not better as well. They've even scooped out a little bit of place for your toes underneath the front seat. So how have they done it? Well, it's a bit of clever packaging, and that's because they've used the verticality or the height of the car to maximize space. You'll notice that the floor of the Kushaq is actually lower than the door sill, so they've used the maximum height of the car there, and the seat is quite a bit higher, so you don't feel like you're down on thigh support either. You sit a bit upright, so if you can make your peace with that, you really notice that it is quite a comfortable seating position. You don't even feel hemmed in by the windowsill. The seat itself is very comfy, but it's very comfy for two. The seat is very tightly contoured and it's not as wide as the one in the Creta. Therefore, these two passengers will be snug and comfy. But the middle passenger, well, they have to deal with a slightly higher lifted up seating position, and that doesn't bode too well for headroom or comfort. And what about the Creta's backseat? Step into the backseat of the Creta and the greater sense of space is immediately apparent, and that's not just because of the big panoramic sunroof or the lighter upholstery shade, it's just that this is the larger cabin. That's especially true of the width, which is far greater, but as you can tell, knee room is plenty, and headroom, okay, maybe because of the sunroof frame, not quite as much as the Kushaq, interestingly, but still plenty enough. If there is one criticism I have of this backseat is that under thigh support could have been a little bit better, but there's still plenty to keep you comfy back here, like these sunshades on the windows and of course these soft cushions on the headrests. What's more, if you have a third passenger back here, things will be a lot more comfortable for them because the bench is a whole lot flatter. The Creta's domination on the roominess front extends to the boot, where its 433-litre capacity is considerably more than the 385 litres you get in the Skoda. So perhaps practicality isn't the Kushaq's strong suit, but when it comes to driving, it's a whole other story. This may be just a 3-cylinder 999cc powertrain, but if I didn't tell you that, you'd never guess it by driving this car. First up, it's very refined. Whether at idle or at low revs, it doesn't have that typical 3-cylinder thrum that people fear that they're going to get. It's very smooth and very quiet, and it's only when you take it past about 3000 RPM, it can get a bit loud and boomy. The other thing you notice almost immediately is the gearbox, and initially not for the best reasons. And that's because as soon as you take your foot off the brake pedal, the car will lurch forward. This torque converter pulls you away from the line very strongly, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. Once you do that though, you'll find that the rest of the gear shift experience is very smooth. This is the torque converter automatic at its very best, a true slush box. It slurs between gears absolutely seamlessly, and it makes it so driving is not like hitting an on-off switch. You don't have to keep juggling your foot between the accelerator and the brake. It just makes the whole experience a whole lot smoother. Now of course this isn't the quick shifting, quick acting DSG that you get with the 1.5 TSI engine, but then it's not meant to be. It's meant to be smooth and efficient, and it appears to do that just fine. But now on to this engine and what it's really like to drive. Yes, I've already told you that it's smooth and refined, but the news just keeps getting better and better from there. It may be small in capacity, but remember it has the same power output as the Creta 1.5 and the torque is significantly more. Yes, there is some turbo lag, and if you really try to catch it out, say while you're crossing a big speed breaker or climbing a hill, then yes, you might have the car dip into that turbo lag zone, and then you'll feel a bit of strain, and that's obviously something you'll never feel in the Creta 1.5 because it's naturally aspirated. Now, this is the advantage of sticking with turbocharging, and the Volkswagen group, which includes Skoda, really knows how to do it best. Even in a mid-size SUV like this 1 litre TSI is an absolute peach. It revs very smoothly and it's got a solid mid-range whack. The car doesn't have any drive modes like the Creta does, but you can put the gearbox into sport, and that does quicken up responses just a little bit. Get it up between 2.5 to about 4,000 RPM, and that's really where the engine's at its very best. And this is really where the Skoda Kushaq plays its trump card. It is an incredible driver's car even with this downsized engine. You must remember that this is not meant to be the exciting engine. That is the 1.5 TSI, but even if you choose this, you will still be plenty satisfied. Certainly more than you would in the Creta 1.5. Of course, that's down not just to the powertrain, but the way the chassis keeps up with it as well. This car may be part of India 2.0, but the chassis is certainly Europe 101. It's that great combination of toughness and robustness that doesn't come at the expense of ride comfort. Yes, you can sense a little bit of firmness, but it's never to the point of being uncomfortable. It eats up bumps really well, and the advantage, of course, of that slight firmness is that when you shore a set of corners, it just loves to dance. The steering too, it's not just a pretty face. It's great to hold, great to grip, and it turns the car in so very sharply and precisely. This is a fun handling thing. Body control is tight and it encourages you to push harder. In fact, it's even better than its more powerful 1.5 TSI sibling on the handling front, since it's lighter in the nose, which gives it sharper turn-in and greater agility. This kind of fun in the corners is something you couldn't even have in the Creta if it had its better engine. Of the three engines that Hyundai offers the Creta with, this is the only one I hadn't driven up until now. The numbers this engine produces do sound pretty meek, but then this is not supposed to be the one that's chasing the numbers. If you want numbers, get the 1.4 turbo DCT. No, this is supposed to be the relaxed powertrain, and in many ways that's exactly how it feels. The moment you tap on the accelerator pedal, it gets off gently. It's not got that crazy urgency that you find in the Skoda. Rather than that, it's got a smooth and gentle, very easy progressive step off. And then there's the CVT automatic. It's super relaxed and in no hurry to get you going fast. Yes, it can be put into sport mode, and it even has paddle shifters that simulate gear shifts. But frankly, if you push this car too hard, it will simply feel strained, and you will then get that unpleasant rubber band effect typical of a CVT, where the revs go high but the car doesn't speed up quite as fast. Honestly, this is a car you just want to leave in regular mode and cruise along smoothly. But that's just as well, because there is a huge market for just this, a relaxed automatic. Not everybody wants to go crazy fast. So what that means is that the Creta is a superb car with which to tackle the bump and grind of city traffic. It's very refined, I'd say even more so than the Kushaq. So it's good at keeping things calm, but what's it like when you start to push it harder? Well, it will get to 3-digit speeds and hold them comfortably. It's just that when you want a quick overtake out on the highway, that's when you'll miss that turbocharged kick. All in all then, it's a very relaxed powertrain, and what it lacks in outright punch and excitement, it makes up for with dependability and consistency. You always know what it's going to do next, the transmission has no gears to fumble with, and because there's no turbo lag. And this chilled out, laid back, relaxed nature of the Creta continues in the way its chassis is set up. And yes, I will still maintain that the Kushaq has the better balance. They've put in more work to make a car that rides and handles really well. The Creta, on the other hand, is all about the comfort. This isn't the sharpest or the quickest steering, but it's light and maneuverable and very, very easy in traffic. And similarly, there is quite a lot of body roll around corners, but that's okay because it's comfortable and it's plush and it's refined, and your occupants will be very, very happy. So no, this is not the driver's car, even if you put the better engine in it. This will always be the big, cushy, comfy one, and that's its thing. By now, both these cars are familiar enough, so I won't go into too much detail about the way they look. The Kushaq may have the longest wheelbase in the segment, but the simple fact is the Creta is a larger vehicle overall and casts a bigger footprint on the road. And that's worth a lot in this part of the SUV market. In fact, that matters even more than its polarizing and somewhat controversial styling, which is full of oddball details. The Kushaq, on the other hand, sticks to a much more conventionally handsome design, with bold, purposeful lines, a tasteful use of chrome, and typical European restraint that lend it a wider appeal. A quick word on fuel economy, and while we haven't done the full Autocar India real-world test on both cars yet, we can compare their ARAI ratings. This Kushaq 1-litre TSI automatic is rated at 15.78 kpl, while the Creta 1.5 petrol CVT is rated at a notably higher 17.1 kpl. It's at this juncture that I should point out that entry-level engine doesn't necessarily equate to base model, at least not with these top-spec cars. They both cost quite a lot, but then again not nearly as much as the more powerful engine variants. At 16.19 lakh rupees ex-showroom, the Kushaq 1.0 TSI AT style is a substantial 1.8 lakh rupees cheaper than the 1.5 TSI counterpart, while this Creta at 16.82 lakhs is 1 lakh cheaper than the 1.4 turbo variant. Does that make the Kushaq 1.0 TSI good value? Sure, the smaller engine doesn't feel quite as smooth or strong as the 1.5 TSI and its quick-shifting DSG, but it's so much better than we expected. In fact, it handles even better than the 1.5 TSI. The Creta 1.5 MPI has a completely different character to the 1.4 turbo, and coupled to its CVT is nowhere near as appealing to drive. It targets a completely different kind of owner, so if you aren't a driving enthusiast and just want a smooth, comfortable automatic SUV, this is the one for you. But how do these two cars square off against each other? That's a lot trickier. The fun-to-drive Skoda makes a strong first impression, but its relatively smaller size and signs of cost trimming work against it. The Creta may not be as engaging to drive, but that aside, it excels in just about every area. It may cost a bit more than the Kushaq, but it gives you more, and it feels worth the extra outlay. It delivers what customers want most: space, comfort, features, and convenience, and that's why it's our winner. It's hugely commendable that the Kushaq manages to get so close in these areas, and this is Skoda's best attempt yet at a desirable mass market car. But there's a reason the Creta has dominated this segment since 2015, and this 1.5 CVT is a fine example of why. Like Skoda, for example, the options you now get are two petrol engines. Oh no, Gavin, no.
No, you didn't.
Huh?
You did not, no?
I did. Step right in the dung.
You have to be closer to the car, then you are clear.
Okay. Oh, that felt really gross. That's why I stopped. I was just like, oh, God. Walk around video of poop. The options you now get are a smaller, cheaper petrol. No, Gavin, it's not smaller. Because one of them is right there on the dashboard. It's that piece of plastic that's meant to... Hey, buddy. Get out. No. Out. Jeez. I love nature.